There must have been well over 300 people there. We were on the island of Naxos in Greece and had somehow found ourselves at this massive pool party. I was 21 years old, young, wild, and free. We were devouring watermelon, and my girlfriend came up to me and asked me if I would go with her to talk to the guy running the bungee jump to see whether or not he would let her go for free if she went topless. Ha, he said. If I said yes to every girl who ever asked me that, I would be out of business. But if you go naked, well, that's another story. I started laughing as I looked at her, and she got dead serious in the face. And she looked at me straight in my eyes and said, I wouldn't. But you would. I dare you. And all of a sudden, immediately, my heart started pounding, and for some reason, I knew that this was going to happen. And before I had any idea to let it sink in, or before I had a chance to have a drink for a little bit of Dutch courage, all of a sudden my ankles were being bound together. I was put on a chest harness, safety comes first when you're going up a crane, and all of a sudden they were lifting me up, and I was quivering in this tiny little towel that they reluctantly allowed me to wear only on the journey up. That was the longest and the shortest journey of my life. And as soon as I got to the top, that massive pool was very small, and that crowd was huge. Apparently, word had got round that there was going to be some crazy Canadian about to go bungee jumping in her birthday suit. In that moment, I wasn't sure what I was more terrified of, the fact that I was about to be bungee jumping or the fact that I was about to be naked in front of a whole lot of strangers. Well, I realized that I was never going to be found in a situation like this ever again. So I decided to milk it for all it was worth. I made the crane operator give me a little countdown. 3, 2, 1. I whipped off my towel, I gave a little shimmy, and I jumped. And I'm not sure what my first thought was, but something along the lines of, oh my goodness, I am bungee jumping right now, quickly followed by a thought of, oh my goodness, I am naked in front of hundreds of strangers. Get me down now. Well, they certainly took their time reaching out that pole, slowly bringing me back in. So much for me inconspicuously thinking that I was going to just get through the crowd, back to my friends, home safe and sound. Oh, no. I had to get through the bar somehow, around the pool, was met with high fives and shots and a whole lot of cheering. Now, you might be thinking, was that an act of courage, or was that just being completely crazy? I don't know, maybe a bit of both. But if I'm honest with you, in that moment, I was more concerned with saying yes to the dare, more concerned with being cool than actually being courageous. It was the story of my life. You see, growing up, I never felt cool enough. I never felt good enough. And I did whatever it took to fit in. Luckily, there was one person who saw me, who got me, who always made me feel good enough. My mom. And then she got sick, really sick. And I moved home to look after her. And for the first time in my life, finally felt purpose. Didn't feel like I wasn't good enough, or tall enough, or pretty enough, or blonde enough. I was exactly where I needed to be. And then she passed away. And in an instant, I lost my number one fan, I lost my purpose, and I lost me. So I went on a mad search to find myself again. I started off in Thailand volunteering at HIV-positive orphanages for babies and children, to Calcutta with Mother Teresa's Missions of Charity. I lived in an ashram, practiced intense yoga and meditation, shaved my head, raised thousands of dollars for breast cancer. I met a man, I moved into his van, I went apple picking in New Zealand for a year. Why not? I've done some crazy adventures, climbed Kilimanjaro, learned how to surf, skydived. But if I'm honest, I wasn't actually being courageous. You see, I wasn't brave enough to face life without that one person who believed in me. It's been 13 years since my mother passed, and sometimes I still wonder if I'm trying to prove myself. Sometimes I still think that I am trying to prove that I'm good enough. If you were braver, what would you do? This is a question or a phrase I sometimes ask the people that I speak to and work with. But I realized recently that I wasn't answering the question myself. And so I created an "if I were braver" list. If I were braver, I would create an online dating profile without being afraid of the fact that I'm 38 and single. If I were braver, I would freeze my eggs without being worried about the investment or thinking that I was tempting fate or not trusting the timing of my life. If I were braver, I would start medication, and I wouldn't be ashamed to admit that I was recently diagnosed with ADHD and suspected bipolar disorder. If I were braver, I would stop comparing myself to everyone else. I would stop trying to prove myself by doing these outside acts of courage. In fact, I would stop trying to prove myself at all. Maybe courage isn't an act of doing, but an act of being brave enough to take on your life, to be brave enough to be you, to be brave enough to be me, in spite of all of our flaws, our fears, and foibles. Maybe the biggest act of courage has nothing to do with bungee jumping in your birthday suit or how many countries you visited or crazy adventures you've been on. Maybe the biggest act of courage is being brave enough to believe that you are good enough exactly as you are right here, right now. If you were braver, what would you do that you're not already doing? Who would you be that you're not already being? Go ahead. I dare you. Thank you.